Hello and welcome to our last installment of Chapter 12, 12.6, How Can We Produce Food
Maybe. Please call the front desk. Nick, maybe. Front desk.
More sustainably. We did not do 12.5 as a PowerPoint because if you look, it's a one-page section of the book. Don't need to make a PowerPoint out of that. Okay, what do we have? Terracing and contour planting and strip planting. So there's different types of conservation methods. This contour planting is seen a lot in Asia. And what they do is they take very hilly slopes, right, and they cut steps into them, right? So you basically increase the surface area. You take the whole mountain where you wouldn't, or hillside where you would not have been able to plant anything because it's too steep, right? And you've increased the surface area of it, and now you can plant on those terraces. And they do a lot of rice growing and with that type of planting. Over here we've got contour planting and strip cropping, and you can see what they're doing is, this is a slope, not nearly as steep as this, it's much more gradual, but instead of having the rows of crops in line or parallel with the slope, it's perpendicular to the slope, and that helps slow down the rainwater. Then what they do, and that's the contour part, the strip part is the alternating green and brown, and you may be saying, well, this is they're going to be harvesting, but it is not. That is the grass that they plant that they're not going to harvest. Maybe it's ryegrass or maybe, I don't know, something that they're going to use to slow water down, absorb nutrients that get washed from erosion of the higher portions, and it just breaks it up and absorbs it. And the stuff that's brown is what they're actually going to be harvesting. All right? Stuff, good times. Alley cropping, you have high trees that provide shade to the crops below. The added shade slows down evaporation of the water so you can irrigate less. Here we've got these trees planted farther apart. They're not providing shade, they're slowing down the wind. After the Great Depression, they realized that the wind that goes through that area is incredibly detrimental to the soil if you are tilling it, right? So these windbreaks help slow down that wind so it didn't carry the soil off and create another dust bowl. Conservation tilling. The tilling is what circulates and aerates the soil and breaks it apart and makes it dry, fluffy, and then it gets blown away by wind or water. So what they do here is, instead of tilling, basically what they're doing is they're having these pistons pump the seeds or whatever it is that they have, maybe it's even sprouts, into the ground without tilling it. It just shoves them anywhere from 1, 2 to 4 inches deep. How do you add fertility to it? Because remember, you're growing crops and then you're taking them away to go feed people, which carries away the nutrients, especially the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So how do you add that back in? You add in a variety of ways, using organic fertilizers, which come from plants and animal wastes. Animal waste, think cow patties, manure. You can spread that over the land, even chicken manure. Plant wastes. Before we used to harvest, say, corn, for example, and then we would take the corn husks, which is the stuff that was the residue left after taking the actual ear of corn, and they would get rid of that, take that off somewhere. Now what they're trying to do is convince people to leave that on there and let it biodegrade because it's adding nutrients back into the soil. Commercial inorganic fertilizers, we've discussed them already, and the downfalls of them, but with the high input agriculture that we have with monocultures, it's hard to go any other route. So unless we change our farming practices, this is going to be a common for a long time. And crop rotation. We know that legumes add nitrogen to the soil. So what we can do, instead of having to add nitrogen in an inorganic fertilizer, we could grow a crop of corn. Then after we grow the corn, the next season we could plant soybeans there. And soybeans are going to add nitrogen because they are a legume back into the soil. Now you don't have to add nitrogen inorganically. Then we can go ahead and plant more corn. You rotate these crops in and out, and then you keep the soil healthy. Sustainable agriculture. What are the benefits of organic farming? You can go ahead and pause it here and take a look at them. Sustainable agriculture and the trophic pyramid. Remember, as you move through the trophic pyramid, 90% of energy is lost at each level. So the higher we eat, the least quantity of energy is available to us. So we lose most of it along the way. So if we all eat huge burgers like this, then we're not going to be able to feed everybody on the planet. But if we all eat most of our calories from lower in the trophic pyramid, we can sustain more people, we can feed more people, while inducing less harm to the environment, to the planet. So beef is probably the worst of all the meats as far as what actually needs to be put into it to grow substantial quantity. Chicken and fish, sustainably caught fish, is better. It requires less energy. And increase, of course, your fruits and vegetables, because that's what we should be eating anyway. And I know that's hard to believe because we live in an affluent society where we eat meat with almost every single meal. If you eat meat and you're not a vegetarian, think about how many meals you eat in a week that don't include meat of some sort. It's probably not many. Sometimes none of them, all right, depending on how much meat you eat. In the past, when we were hunters and gatherers, we would consume roughly 11 pounds of meat per person per year. That's it. Meat wasn't easy to come by, right? The rest of our energy was gained through fruits, vegetables, nuts, etc., berries. So we are meant to eat meat. I'm not advocating that everyone go and become vegetarian, but what I am advocating is that we need to eat less of it as a world if we're going to continue to sustain this many people. The current person in the United States today eats 250 pounds of meat per person per year, compared to the 11 when we were hunters and gatherers. That has a detrimental effect on the environment and on our health. So, just think about, reducing the quantity of meat that you eat, especially beef, because of its extreme impact on the environment. Sustainable agriculture, buy local. We're going to go to this farm. It's called Sundew Gardens, organic farm here in town. Take a field trip here after Christmas, and we're going to go see how this guy grows his food and compare it to Food Inc., which we will watch in a very short while. He's part of a CSA, community-supported agriculture group, right? And they all help and support each other to get their farms up and running and their food to the local people. And we already saw that list showed you why organic farming was beneficial, and why is buying locally beneficial. So, it's like here, 75 cents of every dollar that you spend in a local market stays within the community, compared to 25 cents when you buy at a chain store. Because the chain store's headquarters is rarely in the town in which you live. So you spend that dollar at any grocery store. And I shop at Publix, I'm not dogging them, but every dollar you spend at Publix, 75 cents goes back to the headquarters. 25 cents stays in the local community in terms of salaries paid to the workers. Flip that, if we buy local, only 25% goes outside the local community. 75 stays in right there and supports the people who live within the community that you live in. So, good stuff. Think about it. We're done.